Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First live.
Hello and welcome to this edition of FOF Live presented by About the Fans. As always, you can check out the brand new FOF merchandise collection on aboutthefans.com and get your code FOF10 at checkout. Let's go ahead and introduce everybody here. It should be a very interesting episode of FOF Live to talk about a very interesting series coming up against the Marlins and really one of the worst teams you've seen in baseball in quite a while in the Colorado Rockies. But first, introduce everyone. I'm Daniel, your host. We have Eli, Nate, Isaac, and joining us from Marlin City. He's been here before, Gianmarco Ronali. Gianmarco, how are you feeling tonight?
Hopefully we don't give the Rockies win number 10 this series.
Yeah, that would definitely be something to see there, see how the Marlins fare against the Rockies. But first, let's talk about the Marlins, how they fared against another NL West opponent in the San Francisco Giants. And the Marlins actually defeating Giants 2-1 in this series. Very interesting series there, even with Robbie Ray getting MVP. Eli, talk to us about this series. Felt very low scoring. The Marlins only scoring 3 runs this entire series. How did you feel with the Marlins in this series, maybe pitching, batting-wise? How did it look for you?
Felt like bad offense was contagious because the Giants came in here sick themselves, where they had been on a streak of a couple weeks without cracking more than 4 runs in a game. They kept that streak intact and still win the series, and it spread to the Marlins. This is the lowest scoring series the Marlins have had all season. They only 3 total runs. I looked it up. They haven't had a stretch quite like this at any point this year. They've generally been a better offense at Lone Depot than they've been on the road, and yet in this case, I mean, the starting pitching they went against was pretty awesome. Kyle Harrison and Robbie Ray and even Hayden Birdsong. Between those 3, I think they only allowed 2 runs, with that final one coming against the Giants bullpen. And the difference in this, the whole series, was just one big swing on Sunday, that 3-run shot by Luis Matos, of all people, who used to be a highly regarded prospect, but he hasn't really been able to hit in the big league at all. For him to hit a 3-run shot, that's the whole difference when you're playing at this kind of level and it's such a grind to scrape across even 1 run. To have that type of swing with 2 runners on and in a 2-out situation, that's ultimately what made the difference. Still, you'd have to think this is somewhat of an anomaly, as we'll get into. I think the lineup they have tonight is one of the sexiest lineups they've had all season in terms of just depth of guys that can do something positive at the plate. So it's just hard to believe this is going to continue. Hopefully it is an anomaly with this offense, because all season long that's been the theme, where this team is scoring more runs than we realistically thought they could. So this was a frustrating moment, and I thought we'd see more of these type of series this year. But this has been an unusual one, considering the consistency that this team has played with for most of the year at the plate.
Yeah, to go a little bit more on the series, Isaac, what did you think maybe about the pitching in this series? Because the Marlins still held the Giants to just 6 runs in this entire series, despite losing it. What did you see from this, the Marlins pitching-wise? I know Weathers had a bit of a rocky start, but everyone else seemingly had everything going for them.
Yeah, inversely, I was going to say that the Marlins probably deserved to get swept, but you mentioned they kept the Giants to just 6 runs. It was 3 excellent starting pitching performances. I know Weathers had the 4 earned runs, mostly he's given up in the whole season, but still, I thought it was really impressive for him to give up that 3-run home run to Matos that he mentioned, complete 6 full innings. For the first time this year. I think the first 2 were 5 innings each. Cabrera had one of his better starts. Again, he capped off his really impressive month of May, albeit despite some luck, I guess. I think he also pitched really well. And then on Friday, you had that Quantrill and Junk combo that I think you're going to see a lot more for the rest of this year. I think we have some content with Jansen Junk coming up on the website coming up later. But I think the pitching performance was incredible, considering the Giants' offense had been somewhat hot going into that series. And let's see if Max Meyer and Sandy can keep it going through a really strong full turn through the rotation.
John Marco, going up against the Giants, just what did you see there from them, to radiate with what Isaac and what Eli said?
It was the complete opposite, like Eli mentioned, of what we've seen this season. The pitching staff, which looked really good in May, ended the month really well. It was very good to see, especially in the first two games, seeing Quantrill and Cabrera, who have both been a bit rocky to start. They've locked in on their own and they got better. The one big issue was they put out a very nice lineup. I think yesterday was the start of like one of their better lineups they've put out all season, and they were unable to get any offense going. The Giants, their starting pitchers, their left-handers, they were throwing them those fastballs, and the Marlins were struggling with them.
Yeah. Nate, can you talk a little bit about the man in the picture below us and how well he performed? Because he's been quite a bit of discussion between FOF and others.
Yeah, it's been quite the civil war FOF between our guy Edward Cabrera on screen here, but I think the stats prove it. He was great in the month of May. He had an ERA it was a flat 2, and he finished it off perfectly on Saturday. What really stuck out to me is what Nick Fortes said after the game is that all his misses are competitive, which in the past he's missed wildly. It's just led to a lot of walks, and they all really snowball for him. But this month he really was great. 75% first pitch strikes, I believe, on Saturday, which is huge, getting ahead in counts for that guy. And even when he got in jams at the first inning, bases loaded, 1 out, struck out Willie Adames and Mike Yastrzemski back-to-back. So that was huge for a guy like him. I'm really interested to see if he continues to build on it. I believe he starts this Friday in Tampa. So that'll be another big test for him, but he already faced him in May, I should say. So very impressed with him. I've been on the record of saying I was out on him in spring training, but he's broken me back in. But that's fine with me. I think his trade stock's definitely going up. That's something to look forward to as we creep more and more to the end of July. So bid month ready. Honestly, a bid month for the entire rotation. Just like Isaac said, we'll have something on this on the rotation, hopefully coming out tomorrow, about just how good they've been after what was a abysmal month of April and March. So definitely looking out for these guys.
Yeah, it's great to see him defying father time. 27 years old and not watched up yet. So that was the topic of conversation 2 streams ago, which was coming up his previous start. And this one was different. I touched on this on our spaces yesterday. The fact that he's able to attack hitters in much different ways depending on what the situation calls for and what he has a feel for. He was so breaking ball heavy in his previous start and had success. And in this one, he was very changeup heavy and had success. He can do it in different ways. He's always had a pretty deep pitch mix, which is part of the reason why he was so highly regarded, why there was a lot of confidence that he could be a starter. But it's been the injuries, it's been the control issues. And in the back of my head, it's hard to get past the fact that injury history that he has every single year, it's something, and usually it's multiple somethings. So you just don't know how long it's going to last. The first step is just being able to locate better. And the fact that he's been doing that now for an entire month in a way that he really hasn't done during any month-long stretch of his career to this point, you really can't help but start getting more excited and raise level of expectations for him if he's actually able to consistently repeat his delivery in a way that we just have not seen over this kind of stretch before.
With Edward, is he the most valuable trade piece the Marlins have?
No,
Not
I still think Sandy is more valuable than Cabrera at this point.
Interesting there. We'll get a little bit on that. Just what else? Final notes from this series. If you guys want to mention about Weathers and Cal, just 2 starting pitchers. I know you mentioned Isaac with Weathers. Looked good despite that one pitch to Matos when he gave up a 3-run home run. Whatever you guys, Gianmarco, Isaac, Nate, Eli, what did you guys think of the other 2 pitching performances as well, maybe with Weathers and even Cal, who we haven't mentioned yet?
I guess I'll start. One thing that was really good about Weathers was that 3-run homer and he gave up to Matos, if I'm not mistaken, was on either an off-speed or a breaking ball. It was a really bad pitch. It was basically down the middle. He really stepped up really good after that. It was super impressive to see him pass that 90 pitch threshold, which he hasn't passed all season. I think he finished just at 99 pitches. It was very good to see him bounce back, and the Marlins put together a late rally there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that on Weathers. That overall, I thought it was a fine outing. It was a center cut changeup that lets that game-changing home run right there. Still somebody that I have a lot of confidence in moving forward. The fact that every start he's made so far has been solid, and this one was as he just mentioned, a little bit longer than the previous ones. That's something Weathers went out of his way in spring training to emphasize that. He wanted to be the guy that ate as many innings as possible. He knew that was important. And so it was ironic that he was the one that got hurt in spring before getting a chance to go out there, and then that he was on a little bit of training wheels those first few outings in terms of his pitch count. But that's something he takes a lot of pride in, and we saw it at times last year with him able to work deep in the games. I remember that game in Detroit still pretty vividly where he went 8 innings, and it looked like he could have gone 9 if they wanted him to. That's an important piece. That's why his ceiling, I think, is pretty high as a starter, because when things are on, he can be very efficient as well and work really deep in the games. That's been such a issue with this Marlins team, getting length out of their starters. And more so, even when things are going right with him, you're not going to get much length from him. 6 innings is an absolute best case scenario. Or with Weathers, 6 innings can be the norm for him, the way that he pitches.
Mm-hmm. Not about the pitching, but I feel like we'd be remiss not talking about these two things. Xavier Edwards yesterday, 5-hit day, first start back from the IL. I think getting Xavier back is huge in this lineup. If he can, be the table setter, get on base, maybe finally steal a couple of bases this season, that'd be huge for this offense. And if Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers ever, I feel like when they're hot, they're both hot. And when one of them is cold, they both go freezing cold. I think we've seen that now this series. They've all really both started to cool down. It kind of started in San Diego, but definitely against Giants this past series. So hopefully, this is the perfect chance to, get right back on track against this Rockies staff, but just something that I've noticed.
Before we get into Kevin, I want to ask you guys, what have you maybe thought about Xavier Edwards so far going into second base and having Otto now at shortstop? Now maybe some time with his past where Otto has gotten more reps at shortstop and Edwards getting a little more comfortable in second. Where do you think this has to take for the Marlins? How do you think these guys are performing, or maybe how they're going to perform the rest of the season maybe?
I think it's going to be an immense net positive for the defense. We've been talking about it for a long time, all year long, all spring training long, that this experiment was not going to end on a positive note. And last year here in the middle of the season, it took an IL stint for them to sort of, fabricate that position change. And I think Xavier Edwards is meant to be a second baseman. I agree. I'm not sure if he's the best defensive second baseman in the league, like Tyler Smarts sort of mentioned that he could be. But I think he can definitely be a very, very above decently adequate second baseman, and Otto Lopez is clearly the superior defensive shortstop of the two. I know that Peter Bendix wants to squeeze out as much value as possible with someone like Xavier Edwards, and if he's playing shortstop and leading up and hitting the way we know he can, then yeah, I understand the premise, but it was just so bad, so quick, the numbers spoke for themselves. So to me, I think the starting pitching, you might see a correlation there. The starting pitching might get a lot better as well with the middle infield being played the way it should be.
I think with that is a perfect time. We'll bring in Kevin for our press box report. A little bit of an early one because there are some big news that Kevin brought up earlier today from Clayton, and a lot of things we can even go about there. So let's bring in Mr. Kevin Brown to talk about what he's seeing so far in the press box. Kevin, how you doing?
What's up, guys?
So talk to us a little bit about Clayton and what he mentioned about Yuri. That really seems like it was the biggest news so far, and we can go a little bit more in depth. What that means for the Marlins.
Yeah, Yuri Perez will be making his final rehab start tomorrow, so he should be back in the rotation within the next week. Maybe Tampa, probably Pittsburgh, more likely. So yeah, he'll go 5 innings. I'm guessing just to build back up the pitch count, and it kind of gives you a glimpse of what you're going to see with Yuri at the major league level. Probably going 5 innings, 80-ish pitches, 85-ish pitches, which is fine, I guess. Just as he comes back from Tommy John. But yeah, no word yet on whether it'll be a 6-man rotation or they'll have to make some room. But regardless, they're going to have to make some roster moves just to add Yuri back to the 40-man, given he's not on it right now, just with 60-day. So they're going to have to make some moves within the next 2 weeks-ish. So he'll be back soon. And, they really need him because, pitcher rotation looks a lot better than it has, since the start of the season. But just bringing someone like him, as young as he is, how good he's looked in his rehab starts, definitely something you want. And I think this is a good addition for the Marlins. It's like, I think many say it's like you're bringing like a trade deadline acquisition, essentially. Obviously, it's a different situation for the Marlins, but you're bringing someone in like Yuri who they really need.
And with Yuri, how do you see him the last couple of starts? I know he's had some really good starts in Jacksonville and going up through each level to really get him ready to come back to the majors. How have you seen him, and do you think I don't want to say he's ready, but I don't want to say maybe too soon, but how do you like him now coming back in around early June compared to maybe what we thought he was going to come back?
I mean, I think he's looked good. He's looked really good. He's hitting 99. The velo's there. The stuff is there. Had some little bit of control issues in Jupiter early on, but I think got those pretty much solved in Jacksonville. And aside from that, he's ready. He's good to go. I think that's why he's making one more. He could have made the case that he could have made one more after this one tomorrow, but they feel good enough to where he's going to come back and help this team towards the ladder, towards the stretch right before the All-Star break. So, yeah, good. He looks good. He's ready to go, and he'll be helping the Marlins out as soon as next week.
Right. So it's just a really fascinating decision on a lot of fronts for them to make right here, because they have to decide. We've rarely seen them go with a 6-man rotation at any point in recent years. In this case, the more that I think about it, the more that I'm leaning towards it being a reality, just because when we look at the composition of this roster, there are a couple fellows there, Roberto Hernandez and Jack Winkler. Congrats to them on making their big league debut, but guys that don't really have clear roles on this team. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm reminded of myself about the limits that they have, where they can't actually carry more than 13 pitchers at a time. So those guys are going to be safe no matter what, as I continue to think about this on the fly. But they do have to decide, how exactly to structure this, because and they have several relievers who can't be options, who are out of options and can't go down, including Jansen Junk. So it would make me think that somebody like Valente Bellozo is somebody that could be an odd man out if all the other starters remain intact. But as we'll get into, this is a very big start for Sandy, who his progress has not been as linear as we thought it would be as he gets further away from his own Tommy John. And he's coming off his outing that is as discouraging as anyone that he's had to this point in the season, where if things just go just as badly against this Rockies team as they went against the Padres, do they consider coming up with some sort of injury diagnosis to give him some time off to reevaluate things, just because the continued reps are not really helping the way that we thought they would. But that's something that we'll have to see how it plays out. And if he has any sort of success against this Rockies team, then he's fixed in there. But it seems like a lot of the other starters are fixed in there as well. The fact that Quantrill, even if they aren't really trusting him to go deep in the games, he's still a rental starter, and they signed him kind of for the express purpose of rehabilitating him and then shopping him at the deadline. So moving him to the bullpen would be really counterintuitive. And then everybody else aside from that is fully locked in with Max and with Weathers and with Edward Cabrera. So it ironically, it's actually the veterans in this group that he can maybe make a case for doing something with. The fact that Cal isn't even going that deep into games, and the fact that Sandy has been so bad, far and away the worst of these pitchers at this point in the season. Those are the guys that, if anybody, would be squeezed out in this scenario. But it's a good problem to have, and I don't think it's going to precipitate any sort of immediate trade right here. That's still going to wait closer to the deadline. So in the meantime, it is a good problem to have. It's good as long as Sandy straightens himself out tomorrow in this Rocky start. But it gets really awkward if he struggles again.
And assuming he does get straightened out and he does stick around and they do end up going to 6-man, I mean, realistically, with all due respect to Tyler Phillips, they could probably DFA him and bring back Yuri, which you already have Jansen Junk, you have Bellozo, 2 long men. You don't need a third one. So, I mean, it would make a lot of sense unless they believe Junk isn't the guy, which right now he's looking really good. So no need to get rid of him. So, I mean, with all due respect to Tyler Phillips, who was just recently on that Barstool podcast, he would probably be the odd man out, at least in the bullpen. They don't need 3 long men going out of the bullpen. They could go with, they could bring back Yuri, DFA Phillips, and I think it would be a pretty simple move right there.
Yeah, they do have to make a 40-man opening anyway, one way or the other. So it could just be, even if somebody is out of options like Phillips, that this may just be the time where you're willing to risk losing him in order to create that spot. There are other DFA options on this 40-man roster, but I think Phillips is the one where would be the one on the active roster that you think might be in that position if in that situation. So I could see that too.
Yeah, poor guy has not given up an earned run since May 7th. And, it's, I guess, like Eli said, it's a good problem to have. I would lean the way this organization runs, they since they do have to clear the 40-man roster spot, maybe not, but I see them demoting Beyozo and just optioning him one more time and creating their 40-man space another way. If I had to guess, not total speculation, but Tyler Phillips, you're right, maybe the move as well.
I want to hear from you, John Marco. We haven't heard from you on this opinion yet. What would your move be for the Marlins? When they do bring up Yuri, is it someone like Phillips? Is it Beyoso? What would you do in this situation?
I think I do have to piggyback on what Kevin had said, and I think Phillips, unfortunately, is the odd man out. Beyoso has come in and has completely shocked me and continues to shock me with scoreless outings against the Padres and keeping them in ball games. It's really hard for them. It's really hard for them to even think about getting rid of Beyoso right now. I think Phillips is unfortunately the long man out. I think they really do like that combo that they've been working with Junk and Quantrill. And with Phillips being out of options and it doesn't look like they have the ability to push anyone right now to the 60-day IL, it looks like they're probably going to have to DFA Phillips in hopes he can get through that limbo because they sure would like to keep him in their bullpen.
Before we let Kevin go, Kevin, what's the injury report looking like for the Marlins that they told you, if anything? I know we mentioned Yuri, but any other players that of note maybe that were mentioned for an injury report?
Everyone's progressing.
How's Rob Brantley doing?
He's there. I mean, he looks pretty healthy to me.
Getting his paycheck.
I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, that is I saw him recently. He was very chipper, and he is the healthiest 60-day IL person in the entire league. He is catching bullpens. He is that guy. He is playing around.
Getting that paycheck.
They are doing him a real nice thing. Rob Brantley's a good guy.
Realistically, how long can he keep up all the 60-day?
All year long.
They could, yeah. That would be.
Rob Brantley's about to be a 60-day IL player for the rest of the season, though, because he looks pretty good to me.
I think Rob Brantley's going to stick with this team, with the major league team, for the rest of the year and doing what he's doing and not come back off the 60-day IL.
People talked about a backup quarterback being the best job in the world. I think whatever Rob Brantley's doing right now is that's
easily.
No, you know who has a pretty good job? That minor league catcher, Nestor Rios. Dude, that guy's probably making a pretty nice salary up here. He gets to travel with the team, same perks. Him and Rob Brantley are living a pretty good life.
And yeah, just to answer this, Braxton is out for the season after undergoing surgery. He will be ready for spring training in 2026.
Yeah, overall, things are pretty quiet on the injury front aside from Yuri, because we think Hill will be back in a couple weeks if it's a similar injury as before, but there's no immediate return with him in mind. So this roster on the position player side could be pretty stable for the next couple weeks until Hill gets back. So get used to seeing Jack Winkler and Roberto Hernandez on there at various points, as long as they're not in the starting lineup all that often.
Winkler was getting a lot of reps at first, so unless they want Hicks in there more than him, obviously, but it's worth noting that they're using him at first quite a bit. And I'm surprised Roberto even got into the lineup hitting second to begin his career, but we'll see. That was an interesting one today.
Okay. One of the last things with you, Kevin, you noticed, you told us privately that the Rockies, the media scrum around the Rockies is bigger than around the Marlins. I guess that makes sense though, when you see such a potentially historic team come to town, only one opportunity to speak with them. That's surprising, but at the same time, not surprising at all because of just how historically bad they are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a really bad baseball team, guys. If you thought the White Sox were bad last year, this team is probably worse. Like, it's impressive that you're 9-50 in a 162 game season, and knowing how things go here at Lone Depot Park, they could easily come in and take 2 out of 3. Who knows? But if I had to guess, the Marlins would probably come out on top. But yes, this is I don't like to use this word publicly, but this is an atrocious baseball team. So, but hey, Jacob Stallings is here. You have Tyler Kinley here and 2 former Marlins. So, yeah, I mean, Good to see. Hey, remember, Jacob Stallings actually took Cabrera deep last time here when he came back. I don't think he'll do it again, but it was a pretty funny, I guess, last memory of Stallings here at Lone Depot.
Yeah, we mentioned how poor this rotation is for the Colorado Rockies, but the Rockies have one hitter who is above league average in OPS plus, and that's Jordan Beck. And by far their best player is Ryan McMahon. But even he's just not. It's just incredible. Atrocious is the right word that Kevin used. This is one of the worst baseball teams in the history of Major League Baseball. Their team leader in OPS is in the 700s.
Hunter Goodman.
And that's Jordan.
It's crazy.
This is a team that's sporting Mickey Moniak, who is a -1 win player. And
Orlando Arcia. They just signed.
They signed Orlando Arcia. And poor Jacob Stallings, he seems to be going back to his I know he had a little fun time last year, but he is slugging. His slugging percentage is 185 in Coors Field. 185 slugging in Coors. It is become something.
He's gonna have a home run this series.
His OPS plus is 13.
We didn't get enough games with Jacob Stallings and Jacob Amaya in the same lineup. I'll just say that. That would have been.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, it's this team. Boy, you know what? I'm not going to go this far as what Brian said, but I'm sorry, no, not this one. Oh yeah, I guess yeah. It's just you cannot lose this series. It's just bad. They've won 9 games in 2 months. 9 games.
Let me hold you guys there because I think we have the perfect person to discuss a little bit on the Rockies and how they're performing. That's going to be it for Kevin. All right, you can follow Kevin on Twitter and covers everything he's going to do. Also, Hector. Hector's also at the ballpark. So also check out
a rare weekday game for Hector Rodriguez.
As we have, how you doing, Patrick?
What's going on, gents? How are we doing today?
Doing good, doing good. We have Patrick Lyons here who helps covers the Rockies and everything that he does. Give us a little more info on the Rockies this season as they're going up against the Marlins now in Lone Depot Park. Patrick, we were just talking about some guys here on the Rockies like Stallings, Beck. Can you give us a little bit of an overview on the Rockies this season? Because it just seems like it's been such a crazy year for the Rockies, whether it's on the field, where it's happening, manager, front office situation, just a little bit of an overview for the Rockies.
The overview is pretty simple. This is one of the worst teams ever assembled in the history of baseball. I don't know how far you want to dig on the roster, but there are some guys, of course, as you mentioned, Jordan Beck being one of them, Ezekiel Tovar, that better days are ahead for these players, and maybe even a couple all-star appearances going forward. But other than that, this is a roster that was, haphazardly put together by a front office that lacked certain vision several years ago when they made they made one trade at consecutive trade deadlines. They're the only team to not make a deal at the 2022 trade deadline. And so you look 3-4 years down the line and you say, there's a reason why there's not a ton of depth in the upper minors. So the 40-man roster has some good young players that I think will contribute here in the next couple of seasons, but they're feeling a bit of a roster crunch because their farm system has a lot more depth than it does quality players at the top of the active 26-man roster. So they're struggling badly, and they're 0-6 on this road trip. They've never gone 0-9 before on the road. And they typically don't play very well in Miami. So I imagine there's plenty of Marlins fans that are hoping that trend certainly does continue. They're 41-77 all time in Miami, but they have been playing more at sea level over this past week. So they are going to be a little more acclimated than normally, going from 5,000 feet above sea level to pretty much 6 feet above sea level. So there is that going forward. Chase Dollander will come off the IL on Tuesday. So you'll get a chance to see him, which should be interesting. But this is a really bad team that I am somewhat surprised didn't get to 10 wins before 50. That's a really low standard to set. But that's where they're at. And they're careening towards 137 losses this season.
Wow. Well, what I'm wondering, Patrick, because you're accustomed to covering struggling Rockies teams the past couple of years, what particular moments in this season made you feel that something different was going on, that this could be more extreme type of ineptitude than you were used to the previous couple of years?
That's a great question. I don't know that there was anything in particular. The retirement of Charlie Blackmon is one of those things behind the scenes with just within the clubhouse and having that leadership. It seems as if, you've seen with the Los Angeles Dodgers, obviously in the NL East, Atlanta has had this, Philly has had this, where they've got this innate ability to find a way to win games. The Rockies have almost no capacity for that whatsoever. So they've been keeping a lot of games really close. They've been coming back late in ball games, but just not having that extra thing to get it done. And we've seen the Rockies do that in the past, especially at home where they've been successful and they can be typically around 500. They haven't been around 500. They only have 6 wins so far at Coors Field. And so that is somewhat problematic. Brenton Doyle was out. He missed some time, and he's only now starting to gain some traction. Ezekiel Tovar was on the IL for a couple of weeks. So now they finally got those guys back. But it's really just been a couple pieces of straw that continues to break the camel's back, and the Rockies just can't really pick themselves up right now in the place that they're in, and they can't have fun. I mean, they beat the Yankees. That was their last victory now about a week and a half ago. And even when they do win a ball game, it's like, well, we should be winning a couple of these, so you don't need to hold a parade for us. So even then, it feels like they're not being able to celebrate. In fact, one of their bigger wins after getting routed 21-0 to the San Diego Padres, they end up winning a ball game, which they needed to win and snap a losing streak on Mother's Day, and they felt good. And then about 2 minutes into getting into the clubhouse, hey, turn the music off. We just fired Bud Black. So even then, it's hard for them to feel good and have a positive aspect and outlook going into all of these games. So it's just been one thing after another, and they just really haven't gained any traction yet this season.
You brought up Bud Black. I wanted to get the primer on the interim manager, Warren Schaefer, because I had no idea what he even looked like until preparing for this stream. And immediately what threw me back is that he looks very similar to the former Marlins manager, Skip Schumacher, in terms of you like really squint at it. But yeah, where did he come from? Because usually the bench coach is the one who gets elevated in this situation, but the Rockies in this case cleared out both Bud Black and bench coach Mike Redmond. So what can you tell us about Warren Schaefer, considering that the Rockies had such a long stretch of continuity at that position? First time in about a decade that there's somebody new in there.
Yeah, the first time in 16 years that they made a managerial change in season on top of that. Could have gone with Clint Hurdle too, who came in from a special assistant to the GM to then become the hitting coach, and Clint Hurdle is now the bench coach. When you look at Warren Schaefer, I think Schaefer could take your boy. I imagine he's all of your collectively your boy Gabe Kapler. So he's the second youngest manager in baseball right now after Ollie Marmol, youngest Rockies manager in Rockies history at only 40 years old, keeps himself in immaculate shape. But he has been a guy that has been with the organization for a long time, drafted in 2007, was a utility player. His future just wasn't as a big leaguer. So instead of, continuing to fight in AAA, transitioned as a young player to the coaching side and was, manager in low A Asheville, then double A Hartford for only 2 years before he was up as the manager in AAA. So he made that leap really quickly. And as soon as he became the third base coach and infield instructor for the Rockies in 2023, it really appeared that the writing was on the wall and that Schaefer was going to be the next man up and was going to be the future manager of this club, especially because he had worked so closely with so many of the Rockies minor leaguers coming through up the system. So definitely had that familiarity, works really hard, has a good connection with those guys. So, I think just that change was something the Rockies would have done something different. And maybe that will, maybe it's more of a longer play. But so far he's 2-17 going into the series as a manager, no fault of his own, but he is trying to do certain things differently than Bud Black did that. So that's kind of the long and short of it with Warren Schaefer.
Yeah, but before we get into lineups to discuss this series, I wanted to talk to you, Patrick Reed, about the pitching and maybe primarily a starting rotation. It just seems like when you mentioned maybe Rocky starters, maybe the first two names that come up are Kyle Freeland and Germán Marquez. And really behind that, it feels like they've really gone younger. You mentioned Chase Dollander. You have Carson Palmquist, who's making his return to Miami, went to UM. Just how do you make sense of this maybe rotation where you have these two maybe staples of the Rockies, and Freeland and Marquez, and then it seems like after that, just a lot of young guys?
Yeah, the Rockies needed to make this transition, and so it's finally happening. I don't know how much of it is by choice, saying these young guys are the right young guys, or it's just a matter of, well, Austin Gomber is going to be a free agent after this season. He's on the 60-day IL. Still haven't seen him pitch yet. He hasn't even gone out on rehab. You have Antonio Senzatella, who's going to be a free agent after next season. Marquez is a free agent after this season. Freeland is only locked up beyond 2026. There's an option year in 2027. So those three young guys, or those three older guys, which they've developed since 2017, and were part of those, postseason clubs in 17, 18, the only two times they went to back-to-back postseasons. Those guys are getting older, and there needs to be some transition. Ryan Feltner is the one guy in the middle. He's currently on the IL right now, but Feltner is that one in-between guy. But you're absolutely right, Daniel, that they're going a lot younger. Chase Dollander, as I mentioned, he's expected to come off the IL on Tuesday to make his first start in Miami. He was a guy drafted 9th overall in 2023, and at the University of Tennessee. Rockies have 3 volunteers on their active roster right now. So Dollander is a guy that really, didn't have much to prove in the minors, just needs to get more experience. And the Rockies top brass decided, and I would have agreed with them, get that experience in the major leagues versus in AAA. I think it's probably similar to Max Meyer, who I think was moved, kind of quickly throughout the system and didn't spend a ton of time in AAA. So, they're gone younger, and Carson Palmquist, as you mentioned, was a hurricane. I think when he got drafted, they brought him out to the ballpark, and he shared a whole bunch of stories about working out with David Ortiz, and Ortiz, treated all the guys to breakfast. And so he's got some of those interesting tales about going to UM. So, they're gone younger. They've got Tanner Gordon as another one of those young players, Bradley Blaylock, who they acquired last year in that Nick Mears deal that, doesn't look too great considering how dominant Nick Mears has been in the Brewers bullpen. There's Anthony Molina they got in the Rule 5. So they've got, certainly, quantity, but they don't have a ton of quality. Chase Dollander is that quality guy that I think will be a part of the rotation for a while going forward. Ryan Feltner is still relatively young. I think he still has about 3 more years until he reaches free agency. And then, Carson Palmquist is he's getting his feet wet in the majors, and we'll sort of see what happens with him going forward.
Perfectly said there, Eli. I think we go ahead and look at the lineups for today's game, so we go a little more in depth on these players for tonight with the Marlins, starting off a 3-game set against the Rockies. It should be interesting. A lot of interesting pitching matchups. We have Sandy, Freeland, Marquez really going up this series. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this Marlins lineup first, and we can stick our teeth into the Rockies one. Nate. Your boy Xavier Edwards leading off again, this time second base after being moved off from shortstop not too long ago. Obviously, Ramirez third. You have Stowers. What do you like from this lineup? And maybe a little Dane Myers hitting ninth.
This might be my favorite lineup of the year, to be honest with you. I think this lineup from top to bottom is probably the deepest I've seen in my memory this year so far. I mean, when he was 7, 8, 9 of Connor Norby, Liam Hitz, and Dane Myers, you're sitting pretty great. Connor Norby, even though I said he's been a little bit cold as of recently, but I think you can figure out at any moment, especially against his Rocky staff. And Liam Hitz, who I, stuck my neck out for last stream, been wanting more at-bats from him, finally getting it on his birthday, so something to monitor there. And Dane Myers, of course, at the 9th, who had that incredible catch on Saturday. I think he's going to start picking it up soon, too. So everyone, even 4, 5, 6, it's really looking good. So I think this is the perfect, opportunity for Clayton to maybe finally run out a back-to-back lineup for the first time this year. I think if there was ever a time, I think I would pick this one right here. So if they keep this one, at least, a similar archetype to this, I think they have a good chance to sweep here.
I just need to clarify what Nate said about using a back-to-back lineup. It's not only that. They have not used the same lineup at any point multiple times this year. It's been 58 different batting orders in 58 different games. It has to be trolling. All due respect to Clayton, I think there are other cooks in the kitchen when it comes to lineup formulation and who gets playing time when. And I think they're just trolling us at this point. They're going to see how far they can possibly go without having to repeat the same order that they've used before. It's just hard to do under whatever circumstances to never repeat the same lineup, especially when some of them have had success. Some of them have had a lot of success this year. So fingers crossed that the streak ends, because it drives me crazy to have to spend like 15 seconds every game to look at the previous orders and just make sure that it's another new one. It would save me a little bit of time if they if they just were willing to run it back at one point, at any point this year.
I'm glad you clarified that, because how is that even possible that 57 games in, there's not been a single repeated lineup? Like, there's only 9 spots, 9 positions. How is that even possible?
There have been very conveniently timed injuries. You could say inconveniently timed, but when Otto got hurt, like right when he was coming back, that's when X got hurt. When it's been like that a lot of the year, where when one guy's about to return from injury, another regular goes out. So that's contributed to it too, where you just have a lot of moving parts right here. At this moment, on the position player side, they're pretty healthy. And not to continue to knock on the guys on the bench, but this is a current group where there's really 11 guys out of these 13 that get real playing time. So you would think that at this point, for the next couple weeks, this is where they're going to trap McCullough in a corner. This is when he's going to have no escape route. There's going to be no choice but to actually repeat it at some point upcoming. You would think, health permitting, we should be.
I don't want to brag on the Rockies, but this is their 60th game. They've used 52 lineups. So, I mean, that says everything right there, right?
Yeah, what makes it even harder to fathom is because this lineup, the weights, and I'm sure the Marlins are not the only team that does it this way. They're constructed by, like you said, there's more cooks in the kitchen. It's a formula. It's constructed and sent down to Clayton, and he puts it in. So a computer has not even repeated the same lineup twice against, same-handed pitching. The Marlins went through a stretch of 10 straight games against a righty, and still the computer did not spit out the same lineup 2 days in a row against guys with very similar arsenals as well. I look, and it's unreal that they have not repeated the lineup once in June. But anyway.
I would like to not be the bearer of bad news, but tomorrow Sandy pitches, and there's like a very high chance that Nick Fortes will catch him. Right. So it looks like we will see another lineup again tomorrow.
Oh my god! Well, maybe it'll be a lineup we've seen before. Maybe.
There you go.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, it just seems like if there's ever going to be a perfect lineup, it should have been here by now. At least maybe back to back. But Eli, let's look at this Rockies lineup, and Patrick give us a little more in depth on here. Maybe the only time we've seen the Marlins outclass a team in terms of how much red there is on the lineup, and I think the only time this season it's happened. But Patrick, talk to us about this lineup. You mentioned 52 different lineups. So I'm guessing this is one of those 52 we haven't seen before. How are these maybe often new players coming in, how they're doing? Orlando Arcia, who they signed not too long ago. Keston Hora, God, that's a name I haven't heard in such a long time since he was with the Brewers. Just what do you make this lineup for us Marlins fans?
Yeah, it's not pretty right now. Hunter Goodman is the guy that if you're watching this Marlins series, you don't want Hunter Goodman to beat you. Tovar can beat you as well. McMahon will have some good at bats. He was an all-star last year, so he's capable of that. Brenton Doyle as well. But you talk about this being a first-time lineup. Sam Hilliard has never hit leadoff in over 300 games in the majors, so he just got called back up over the weekend. And Tyro Estrada, this is only his third game ever batting cleanup. He still doesn't even have 40 plate appearances after coming back from a wrist fracture in spring training. So he just came off the 60-day IL. Orlando Arcia has not played third base since 2022. Keston Hera, it was a butcher at second base and is now moved over to first base after 25 home run hitter Michael Tolia was optioned to AAA to work on some things with his swing, kind of unprecedented to hit 25 home runs in the majors and then get sent down within the first 2 months of the next season. And Tyler Freeman doesn't have a ton of right field experience. He came up in the Cleveland system, was more of a middle infielder type that worked his way out into center, but center field is a much easier position to play than the corners because the ball's coming in right at you. There's not as many, I don't want to say distractions, They say a lot of times players will say textures, like there's different textures in the corners where there's an auxiliary scoreboard or some kind of netting. You don't have to deal with that in center. So Freeman in right field, that's not very common. So Tovar and Goodman are really the guys at the top of that lineup that can do damage. And one of the biggest issues the Rockies had is just really stringing good at-bats together. Is, they're typically getting anywhere from 3 to 8 hits a game. They're scoring on average about 3 runs on the road. I mean, they've scored 73 runs to be exact on the road so far this season. And about 20% of them came in one game when they beat the Diamondbacks 14-12. So they're struggling, and they've just never played well in Miami before. And Max Meyer is a competent pitcher. So I think he'll end up faring well. Sandy Alcantara, yes, he's not a Cy Young Award winner right now, but he has that in his pedigree. And if there's, any player or any team that can get right against, it's doing it against the Rockies. So the Rockies have been that get right team, despite the fact that they did beat the Yankees for their last victory. So, there certainly is that trap series or that trap game. And I can see it on all your faces right now going, oh man, we're going to lose 2 of 3 to the Rockies. Even if you lose 1 at this point, sure, you're going to be frustrated by that. But, it's just hard for me to see the Rockies taking 2 out of 3 right now. They've won on back-to-back games only once this season. They haven't won a series since last September.
That's
so crazy. Yeah, they've lost their first 19 series. No team has ever lost the first 19 series of a season. And they lost their last 3 at the end of 2024. So that's 22 consecutive series dating back to last September. That's never happened in the history of baseball. So that's the Colorado Rockies.
And I don't want to make things worse or mention that.
Just do it. It's okay.
The Rockies just having this season, and then you go look at the draft, and they're not even eligible to get a pick within the first 9 picks. I think the earliest they could pick is 10. Is there a way the front office is even trying to deal with something like that, where they have such, this type of season and they can't even get a pick within the top 9? Is that something maybe the front office is looking at? Like, this entire season, there's nothing to show for it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. They'll be able to pick 4th this year, and maybe Ethan Holiday, son of Matt Holiday, will slip to them. But I've heard people speculate that the Rockies are in such a bad place right now that you could have a high school player or maybe even a college junior get taken by the Rockies 4th overall and then say, no thanks. Like I'd rather try my odds somewhere else. I might end up getting less money, but this might be better for my career overall. And I don't think the Rockies would even take a player that they don't think they can sign. So the owner Dick Monfort has made some comments very recently about, salary caps or caps in general on all kinds of things like scouting and international scouting. And, the draft already basically has that with the bonus pools. And really what I think he wants to do is try to bring everybody down to his level because, the Rockies just don't invest in a lot of things that other teams do. I mean, you're in the same vicinity as the Tampa Bay Rays, and you probably don't know who's going to be on their 26-man roster from year to year. And, don't get married to any of those players. Careful when you buy a jersey. Even if a guy is signed to a long-term deal, you still might want to be careful. What is this player getting up to in the offseason? But that being said, they're always going to be good. And the Rockies really have operated in the opposite way, where you do know who's going to be the Rocky on the Rockies. Charlie Blackmon's been around. He's in center field, right field for 14 years. Todd Helton's been around for 17 years. So you have those guys that you can feel familiar with and buy their jersey and come to the ballpark and know who they're playing. But is that actually helping you with wins and losses? So, the rules that are in place with the current CBA to prevent teams from tanking, which this is not a case of the Rockies tanking. They've just gotten in their own way. In fact, if you go back and look from 2012 to 2015, the Rockies only won 1 more game than the Cubs from 2011 to 2014. They were actively tanking the Cubs, and yet the Rockies in a similar 4-year period only won 1 more game. So they're just stuck, and there's really no solution as to how they're going to fix it other than a complete overhaul. And that's just something that the owner really doesn't want to do, unfortunately.
I wanted to squeeze one more thing in here before prediction time about a historical perspective, because although the Rockies have been in the dumps lately, there's a lot at stake in this series. This is the championship belts could like switch sides. Both these teams, of course, came into the major leagues at the same time, and entering this series, the Marlins have it. You add it all together, it's a 1-game lead historically. It's essentially the same winning percentage. It's a 1/10 of a point of a winning percentage in the Marlins' favor right now. If they do lose the series, then the Rockies go back percentage points ahead. This had been in the Rockies' corner for about 7 years, since the Marlins previously went into a deep rebuild in 2018. And ever since then, the Rockies had a little bit of an advantage. It's only these last few years the Marlins have pulled back in front. I'm going to have an article on this, even though very few people actually care about it. But I just find it interesting that after all the ups and downs of these franchises, and there have been more downs than ups overall, that they are almost in precisely the same place as of this moment, 32 and a half seasons into their existence.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And, and when I'm looking at the managers too, I think of the Pine Tar game, because Bud Black actually started that game for the Kansas City Royals, and Don Mattingly was with the Yankees at that point. And I think because you could have only played that game with players that were on the roster when they eventually completed the game, like a month or so down the line. So Don Mattingly, a left-handed first baseman, had to play like third base, for part of the game. So yeah, these two teams have had it rough. And, I think for a while, Rockies fans felt good about being compared to the Marlins. Obviously, the Marlins have the 2 World Series, but the Rockies, have done it their way, quote unquote. And who the players are. They haven't had fire sales. They've done it the right way. They've had one ballpark. They haven't rebranded, every 5 years. They haven't won the division. Neither have the Marlins. Marlins, I think, only have 4 postseason appearances, and one of them came in the pandemic season. Rockies have 5, but now it's, as you're pointing out, Eli, it's kind of just getting to the point where it's like, yeah, maybe the Marlins have had an overall better run. The experience at the ballpark still certainly favors Coors Field and going out to games, and it's just a great vibe. That's why attendance is still really solid. I mean, put a thumbtack in this one on your calendar, but 4th of July, Coors Field's going to sell out. There's going to be 48,000 folks. It's going to be a hard ticket to get to go see a pair of 120 lost teams, Rockies versus the Chicago White Sox. And it will sell out, friends, on the 4th of July at Coors Field. The vibes are immaculate.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to end it there until we get to prediction time. Eli, let's get this music going. Let's see if we can have more fireworks in that July 4th game.
A new prediction time video for the first time in about a year or so. I made a very slight modification I think is more appropriate.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
I don't know why I wasn't using that since spring training. It's so much more appropriate that Bruce is making a prediction right there. And to this point, Bruce, it's essentially they've been winning about the same amount of games as people expected coming into this season. A quick look at the leaderboard, which includes our staffers, our live stream guests, and our valued super subs. Thank you guys for the support right here. Still super subs in the top 4 spots. Hector Rodriguez at the ballpark, of all people, is the top predictor among our staff, and I am once again just barely above the cutoff because I keep falling for it. I keep thinking that they're going to be slightly better than they're supposed to be, and that keeps hurting me in this situation. But anytime between now and first pitch, our super subs, you got 15 more minutes if you want to get your predictions in on the site or in our Discord channel right here. And for Patrick, just to get you familiar, you simply predict how many games the Rockies are going to win, and then who the series MVP is going to be. It could be from either team. We make that based on win probability added. So it could be a hitter, it could be a pitcher. We kind of put them on the same scale over the course of the series. We can go to the ballpark first. Very quick video just from Kevin and Hector. And you might be able to expect what their predictions were.
Alrighty, Marlins, Rockies, 3 games set. I'm going to go with the Marlins sweeping the Rockies, and Connor Norby's my series MVP.
I got Marlins sweep as well, and I'm going to go with Dane Myers as my series MVP.
Back to you, Eli.
I have a question for you guys. When was the last time? Is this the first time you had a prediction of Marlins sweep? Has that ever happened before?
Yeah.
I've done that at least a year. Say Marlins sweep. Maybe the White Sox a year ago?
Someone predicted a Marlins sweep of the Giants. No, not a super sub. Not one of us, but maybe a super sub has before, I'm sure, many times.
This will probably be the most people. The most people will see sweep than ever before right now.
I don't know. With the Marlins, it's very...
An important data point here is that the Marlins have not swept a series yet this season. So this would be out of character for them to go to that far. They've had 1 3-game winning streak that covered multiple series, but even this, it's one of those really difficult situations where one of these teams could do something uncharacteristic for themselves over the course of these next 3 games, because Marlins themselves, even if they feel like they're in a different tier of competitiveness, they still have their flaws and have had a lot of their issues.
The Rockies have been swept 10 times in their 19 series this year. Now, how do you feel?
Well, let's find out right now. Let me cue up the music. And then, Daniel, do your thing.
All right. Starting us off, lead off. Kevin was not here to lead us off. The next best thing, Mr. Nate.
Well, funny enough, the Marlins' first sweep last year came against the Colorado Rockies at Lone Depot Park, and I think they'll do it again. They will sweep the Rockies and notch their first sweep of 2025. And our guy Patrick just said it. This is a get-right series. I think this is finally the time that Sandy Alcantara gets back on track. He's going 7 innings tomorrow. That's your MVP.
All right. John Marco. You're muted.
I think the Marlins will get their first sweep of the season, and I think the series MVP, I think Kyle Stowers has a get-back series, and he hits 3 of them into the seats.
Ooh, Isaac.
Marlins are not going to sweep the Rockies. They're not going to sweep the Rockies. They're going to get their 10th win of the season in Miami, but Miami will win 2 out of 3. And for series MVP, I like Max Meyer. I like the Minnesota kid. He's going to pitch well today against Colorado.
Eli.
I just have the Marlins winning 2 out of 3. A gentleman's series win, allowing the Rockies to steal 1 over the course of this. I'll pick Eric Wagman as series MVP. He's been quietly underperforming for a little bit while, but for whatever reason, the Marlins insist on still using him as pretty much an everyday player or something close to it. So he'll get the plate appearances in here, ideally with some runners on base. He's been unclutch for so much of this season, and I feel like that's just due to turnaround as long as he's getting those opportunities.
All right. I'll go now. I think the Marlins win 2 out of 3. They're not going to sweep the Rockies. The Rockies will get their 10th win on the season this series against Miami. By my MVP, Agustin Ramirez, he's going to have 3 hits in every game this series. Patrick.
I think the Rockies will take 1 because they've had 4 8-game losing streaks this season. The rest of baseball have only 3. But they've won game number 9. Monday is game number 9. So I'll take the Rockies winning on Monday. I'll call that shot. But the series MVP for the Marlins will be Kyle Stowers.
Ooh, nice one there. Kyle Stowers in trade talks. We'll see what happens in the trade deadline. If that is a guy that's even possibly getting traded, but that's a discussion for another stream. But for this one, Patrick, really appreciate you coming on to talk about the Rockies and enlightening us this season between 2 teams who are not having the best of years. But that's going to do it for us. For myself, Daniel, Eli, Nate, John Marco, Isaac, for Kevin, for Hector, for Patrick joining us from Just Baseball. As always, go Fish.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.